Well, hello, my baby gorillas, and unbelievable trying to get this stream up and operational. Let me just check if it's working. Let me just move this over a bit, some sound in the proper place. See if that's better. Let's see if I look at this. Oh ho ho!
When you give a Ramova, you open a world of ceaseless curiosity.
See if that's better. Let's see if I look at this. Well, looks like we're on. So, apologies for the delay from last night as well. Let me pop the chat. Had a number of issues. I'm going to cover the sort of things that have happened over the years with YouTube, and to thank you all for 250,000. Now we're about 10,000 off 250,000 views on this channel. It's been going for a number of years, so 250,000 views isn't that much. I've seen one video get multiple times that. But because I always knew that politics is quite a dry subject, and this channel is definitely for the political animals and intelligentsia, that this was not going to be a massively popular channel. But I think when I show you what's been going on YouTube, you might get an understanding of what has actually been happening. Very soon, probably next year, we're going to have the Guerilla TV channel is going to be set up independently of YouTube, because it really can't be trusted, and I can't deliver a service that I would hope to bring to you guys, and it's I think it's been deliberately done to frustrate. But I mean, it's not just me that's happened to. See, this is the thing that I think people have found out now that they didn't actually know. If I had been working in isolation and I was doing my own thing and we didn't have the internet, we wouldn't know that other people are being affected. It's not just me, it's other people who we can all list that are being deliberately affected by the powers that be trying to curtail freedom of speech. So we all know that this is definitely happening. But if you can imagine you're by yourself, it might feel like gaslighting, whereas that you might be just paranoid about you being affected individually, if you didn't realise that this was actually happening throughout the internet, and to not just me and to other people at a greater level of shadow banning and everything else, mass fines. There's Alex Jones getting a $1 trillion fine. You would think if it was only happening to you, that it was just you that was the issue. So let's share this and get it out to as many people as possible. You would think that it's only you that is actually being adversely affected on this. But now we know that the powers that be are doing it not just to me, but to we'll come on to them later, powers that be who are doing it to stifle freedom of speech and debate on political subjects. So if you're off message of the agenda, which all our political class are on the agenda, then that's an issue. That's an issue for me personally. I mean, I'm taking it on the chin, but it does filter down to you, and especially to my baby gorillas that are watching this, that it is going to have an adverse effect on you as well. So it's not just me that's going to be affected, although I'm more obviously affected than possibly you guys, which is going to obviously lead to issues eventually for you as well. And that's the situation. So we now know that the powers that be whatever contraption they're using through the state, that they are adversely affecting you if you don't agree with their political stances. And I think increasingly the populace are not agreeing with the political stances. The only strange thing or difficulty that I have is that somebody would go from voting for the Conservative Party and they were voting for Boris Johnson to voting for Sir Keir Starmer, a Remainer who is going to be 10 times worse than even Rishi Sunak. He's the ultimate shill for the WEF. So if the Labour supporting Brexiteers don't wake up quite soon and move their vote to, for example, UK Reform Party, and this is really the Labour supporting Brexiteers, and if they're to support another globalist shill like Sir Keir Starmer, or for that matter, what's his face, Sarwar in Scotland, that you've just wasted your Brexit vote, because you're just going to put other guys, whether it be Sunak or Hunt from the Conservative Party, and change it with other Remainers and put them in charge, and they're just going to follow the same agenda. However, the UK Reform Party is now sitting at 11% in Scotland, and that's substantial. I mean, that is absolutely substantial. So we've got Meghan and Harry, and I'll come on to what the main gist of the topic as well. I'm going to discuss Meghan and Harry. I don't talk about Meghan and Harry a lot, but there's issues. I'm not a royal correspondent. I don't talk about the royal family. I leave that to other people who have got a genuine interest. I'm not anti-monarchy per se, but I'm not going to talk about the royal family unless it involves politics and the political side of the royal family. And unfortunately, I think Meghan still doesn't get it. There is a reason why we don't talk about or the royal family don't talk about politics. And unfortunately, she's breaking this rule. And I'm going to go on, because it's now encroaching on my area of speciality, and i.e. politics, that she's now encroaching on that as a member of the royal family, and we can't have that. So I'm going to speak with regards to that on a specific podcast, because it's relative to politics, not per se the royal family. Only the royal family involvement in politics, or lack of involvement in politics, should we say. So let's see. I don't know, did I open that? Yeah, here we go. I did open that. So Nicola Sturgeon's failures. So let's just go down some of the what people have been saying with regards to Nicola Sturgeon's failures. Let's bring up. No, I'll wait to that for a second. In our house, they all ignore, as Nicola Sturgeon does, fixing minutes to repair a lie, and not a word in the house. The Holyrood PO is useless and cares not a bit that we see her failures, which is correct. That is correct. I don't know who this fellow is. Obviously a Rangers supporter, but there are Rangers supporting nationalists and Rangers supporting unionists, so it's quite a mixed bag there, from Rangers supporters. But basically, what Bill 56 is saying is that Nicola Sturgeon has lied. In fact, she was on Loose Women lying about lying, where she was found guilty that she had misled the Scottish Parliament. But the problem in the Scottish Parliament is not the Scottish Parliament per se. I noticed that some people want to abolish the Scottish Parliament. The problem in Scotland and in the Scottish Parliament is left-wing politics, and just jumping between the SNP, which are under Nicola Sturgeon are post-modernist Marxist, and under her shilling for Klaus Schwab, who also looks like he's actually underlying a communist. I think his parents or grandparents were in his parents were in the National Socialist movement, which again we've actually seen stems back to Marxism. And apparently Klaus Schwab had a bust of Lenin, So if he's a Marxist and it's permeating down to Turdo in Canada and Horseyface in New Zealand, who I don't think Turdo is a liberal. I'm a liberal. I wouldn't recognise him. I'd recognise him more as a communist. Same with Jacinda Ardern. So if the worldview is coming from a communist Klaus Schwab and it's permeating through the interference that the WEF has got through all of our political institutions, our political parties, and that's why our Conservative Party, who are WEF adjacent, are bringing in communist policies, because they're bringing in the WEF manifesto, and that he's potentially a communist, and that Nicola Sturgeon is bringing in postmodernist Marxism, which again, Klaus Schwab is meant to come from the Rothschilds dynasty as well. And I just heard about the Ku Klux Klan being set up by a Jewish guy as well. I don't know if that's true. It was an African American fellow that put that out on, I think it was Instagram. So there's a whole series of, and the failure is from the left and left-wing politics in Scotland. So by just jumping between Labour, who are WEF adjacent as well, they're going to follow the WEF agenda, from WEF adjacent the SNP. We're not going to get changes in policy. We're going to get lied to, gaslit. They'll say they're going to do the right thing and then they're going to do the wrong thing, just the same way the Conservative Party are doing. So there's not going to be changes in policy. The only political party that may change policy, and if they don't, somebody else will step into the gap, is the UK Reform or Reform UK Party. Here's another one. What's the point? Sturgeon doesn't listen to anyone, never learns, and lessons from her woeful failures. Stop wasting people's time. Again, another great comment. Tory Westminster decides how little budget Scottish Government gets. Small create a struggle. Millions use counteract their evil policies on Scotland. Then the Tories droids call us out for failures. Well, I think that's not exactly giving yourself any point of reference. That's partly true. Our budget is dictated to by Westminster. So us increasing the economy, which Nicola Sturgeon has not done, won't make any difference to the taxes that we're actually getting. Whether or not we should raise our own taxes and then obviously either pay in or take out of the UK exchequer, that might be a better system even within the UK, even within unionism, because that would give an incentive to grow the Scottish economy. Just now getting block grants is not an incentive to grow the Scottish economy. But I suspect that the Scottish economy has not been growing because of left-wing ideology. That Nicola Sturgeon doesn't want to grow the Scottish economy, and she doesn't want to grow the Scottish economy because of her ideological opinions, which are very, very far left. Nicola Sturgeon is the furthest left, including the Labour members that we've had, and she doesn't listen because she's on the WEF Marxist and her postmodernist Marxist agenda. Your pledges mean nothing. All your pledges over the years have failed, never materialised, and all you do is blame others for many failures. Yeah, I mean, they have to take responsibility. They have to take responsibility for what they've actually done. They've been in power for 7 years, and although in the recent poll it's shown that 56% would actually now leave the union, the system of governance, and especially with the left-wing parties in Scotland, it's the left wing that has been incompetent in Scotland, and I would suggest for a number of years. But now we're seeing a decline potentially. We've either got two polls. So we've got polls that the SNP are going to win every seat bar one in Scotland, and we've got another poll that Labour has increased in Scotland and the SNP are down to 30 odd percent, that the UK Reform Party are up to 11%, which is a fascinating poll as well. But I'll come on to that poll later. I'll try and get a collection of polls. So let's go up for the latest on this. But the SNP never changed, pointing fingers at others for their failures, which is correct. I think Willie's correct. The fact that they have to take responsibility. They've been in power for 7 years. If they're not taking responsibility for what they've done, where's the Scottish stock market? Where they said they were going to bring in a Scottish stock market? All the pledges that they've said they were going to bring in their manifesto have not been brought in. And Nicola Sturgeon is just following the WEF agenda. Pointing the fingers at others, a failure full of hatred and division, absolutely no intention of trying to pull the country together. That's right. If you treat people as individuals and not part of a collective, then that is going to be a much better opportunity for Willie, who's correct, to actually bring people together. Treat them as individuals. This is back to my libertarian liberalism, classic liberalism from the Scottish Enlightenment, that you treat people as individuals, not part of a collective. Unless they are part of a collective, like Nicola Sturgeon is a postmodernist Marxist. But that's something that she's decided to join. Party members also congratulate each other for epic failures, truly amazing. If you had all just waited for Omnicorn, taxpayers wouldn't have had to pay trillions to be their own lab rats. Cheers. Yeah, and there's some. I can't say anything about this because obviously YouTube's already given me a strike for medical information. We don't speak about medical information. We don't really speak about the royal family either on this channel. We are not a cultural channel. We're a political channel. Amazing. This is Shellbot. Amazing. If you keep saying the same thing over and over again, people eventually believe it. It doesn't actually make it true. I'm sure if the media published stories about how evil goldfish were, the people would eventually believe it. Stop blaming others for SNP failures. So you can see that this is a common thread, and I think a lot of these people are actually Scottish. And I don't think this is a dig about nationalism as such. This is a dig about incompetent domestic policy, that if you strip away the nationalist aspect, and if Nicola Sturgeon was to be assessed on what she's done over her period of governance, that she would be seen as not competent. She would be seen as not... What you guys saying? You should be seen as incompetent, as the Labour have been. Whoever leads Labour after independence will be the first PM of Scotland. Yeah, but that's very concerning because Labour are just as bad and as incompetent as the rest of them. That's I think that would be the worst scenario, and I think Sarwar is the most far right political entity in Scottish Labour. History, my direct history, I don't know anybody who would be described as further right than Anna Sarwar in Scottish Labour politics. So you could literally just get anybody. You could get anybody from any political persuasion, and I think this is a problem with Scottish politics, to actually stand for the Labour Party, infiltrate the Labour Party, and because people are not in Scotland discerning about the vote and just vote Labour, Jamie, you could actually literally stand a donkey, or you wouldn't even have to stand a donkey, but you could stand somebody who was anti-globalist, you could stand somebody who was maybe more liberal and more centrist, maybe more libertarian liberal. That person would get elected. Whether or not they could get a caucus within Labour would be a different matter. Doesn't look like you are going to be in charge if ever did happen. You are associated with all the failures and bad policies of your party. Now, Labour would be exactly the same. I'm going to talk about Labour replacing the SNP and how it's just two cheeks of the same asshole. The policies are already set down by WEF, and we're following the WEF agenda. So, although the Labour Party are a unionist party, the SNP are a nationalist party, and I'm using nationalist only for the one independence. Both of them have got stupid left-wing policies. Both of them will be inept. Labour keeps bankrupting the country. SNP's failure on policy since Alex Salmond, I actually think Alex Salmond was probably more of a social democrat, and Alex Salmond was certainly more competent Nicola Sturgeon's been. Nicola Sturgeon has been the extreme left in Scottish politics brought in. And that's why her policies have been bad. Her policies have been incompetent. But if you're voting for any of the WEF adjacent political parties, you're going to get WEF adjacent policies. So if you're voting for SNP, Lib Lab Con Party, the Greens, these are all WEF adjacent political parties. So you're not going to get a change of policy. They'll say what they should be doing and then do whatever WEF has actually told them. So you're going to get gaslit. And the fact that they're meant to be doing X and they're going to do Y. Oh, we should be doing this, but no, we're not going to do that. We're going to follow the WEF agenda. And the media will then allow that to facilitate, because they're playing cover for the actual, rather than holding them to account, they're playing cover for the 5 main political parties. I don't know who my fellow 1 million Scots are who voted for Brexit, who correctly voted for Brexit. They would then vote for political parties who are going to follow the globalist agenda. That doesn't make sense to me. That's you doing the same thing over and over and trying to get a different result. Height of lunacy. So even if you have to hold your nose to vote for Reform UK, I don't think Reform UK would be that bad. The policies, and Richard Tice is an intelligent man, nice fella as well. I've met him on a personal basis. But at least that way, even if you're a Labour supporting Brexiteer, or have been from a Labour supporting Brexiteer family, I'm from the working class as well. So if you would then vote for WEF, especially if Nigel comes back. Nigel could really, and the timing of Nigel coming back is going to be incredible. If Nigel comes back and then is close to like a general election and they get a huge bounce, that could really change British politics. If Nigel comes back and they're sitting 25-33%, that they can win it. If they start to pull Labour supporting Brexiteers in the north of England, Midlands of England, away from the Labour Party and reduce the Labour Party, then the Brexit Party could conceivably win the next election, which would facilitate another one of my very strange but true predictions. And I got that 2 years ago, guys. I got it 2 years ago. When are you doing farce, Minister? NHS in ruins, council starved of money, police stations closed all over the place, ferry scandal, and list of you and your party of liars and crooks and sex pest failures are endless. I understand, because I don't agree with Sarwar. I miss some of what you said in my work. Yeah, your work, Jamie. Good man. Good man. Get the rest of the workers tuned in, James. But personally, for me, I think Scotland needs a spell of right-wing politics, even for 5 years. Yeah, you're completely right, mate. That's why I'll be voting for UK reform. Although it's a wee bit of a move, but certainly UK reform, because they've got some great policies, really good people there as well. And Richard Tice, again, is great. I think Nigel's going to come back. I think Nigel's got to come back. I think if Nigel comes back, and let's hear what he said, because this is quite interesting. And watch Jimmy Dore. I'm starting to like a lot of these left-wing Russell Brand for talking a lot of mince for years on politics. I like Russell Brand. I think he's a terrific entertainer. He's obviously made a few mistakes like the rest of us, but just now I think Carol Benjamin identified that he's completely on the point. On point. So is Jimmy Dore, who was in the Young Turks, which I've got no love lost for the Young Turks, but I'm starting to love Jimmy Dore's comments as well. He's very much on point. So, Richard Tice, GB News. Let's hear, this is it. So let's hear what Richard has to say here. We'll take a few clips from the guys down at GB News.
Hey traders, today is your very last day to get free membership access to the complete trading course I normally sell for $9.
One area where we are completely aligned is on this disgusting betrayal of Brexit that's going on, and I talk about it on the show every night. I cannot believe...
But if you vote for the Labour Party, it's still going to be a betrayal of Brexit. Keir Starmer's a Remainer, an ardent Remainer, and another shell for the WEF.
Cannot believe that we're at 504,000 net migration.
Net, if you believe
over
the numbers.
a million.
The gross number, though, 1.1 million.
Over a million.
They've no idea really what the net number is, but it's off the scale. At the same time, they've just, over the last couple of days, said, well, we're not going to build any more houses in order to house
this isn't what
these
we
hundreds of
voted for,
thousands.
This is not what we voted for in 2016.
They've betrayed us on taking back control of lawful immigration. They've betrayed us on the illegal immigration. We're the only party that stands for zero illegal immigration. And frankly, outside healthcare, we need a pause. We need zero lawful immigration until there's a catch-up.
Zero net lawful migration.
Zero net lawful
outside of
healthcare. Because
and that's because you say that healthcare is such an important area. We do need cheap.
It's the greatest crisis. No, it's not a question of cheap.
Yeah, but I would also start to take off the stops on the indigenous population, like nurses and doctors. There seems to be they can only train so many nurses and doctors. If you have to reduce by one grade entrance requirements, so I'm not really bothered if somebody's got an A in English or a B in English and they still get into medicine. If the government should know how many people are going to need, but because of the open door immigration through the WEF agenda, we don't know how many people we're going to need. So I mean. And obviously it costs more to train our own, so the government's going for the cheap option as usual, and also mass immigration.
Needs skilled healthcare labour. I've put forward a plan in order to attract more people back in within the UK.
So what, these are doctors and nurses?
Doctors and nurses and surgeons, and as well as social care workers, where there's shortages. So we've got to deal with that shortage. But outside of that, you say net we should
legal migration.
We should have net zero lawful migration until, frankly, we all know where we are and we catch up. But look, the Tories have betrayed us. They've got no real commitment.
Well, I think they're on the WEF agenda, Richard. So I think that's. I don't think. They've betrayed us, but they've not betrayed the agenda that they are going for in the first place.
To stop the channel crossings, we've got a clear 6-point plan. You have to leave the ECHR.
Some Tories do, though, but this is exactly. Yeah, and this is the issue. Some Tories do because actually.
Yeah, but it's been taken over by the WEFs. It is now a WEF. The Tories are a WEF party.
You know, I have great faith in the Home Secretary, Suella Braverman. I feel at the moment...
You had faith in Priti Patel?
I did.
Yeah, I know, but I know that's the con game that they do. That's the gaslighting of individuals. And Dan's a clever guy as well. But they're just gaslighting. That's just a gaslighting effort.
You love the warm words, but where's the action?
Yeah, because they're gaslighting. They say one thing and they do another.
And where's the delivery?
They'd already sent us up to the Barcelona process, reunion the Mediterranean and the UN Compact to Marrakesh. This was already decided that we were going to have open door immigration to the North Africa and the near Middle East.
The action needs to come from...
And that was done by the Tories, the so-called Conservative Party.
The Prime Minister. And what Rishi Sunak has to do is get the balls to say, go and Suella, do everything that Nick Timothy has just recommended, leave the ECHR. But we know Suella wants to do that. We know she wants to.
Yeah, she does, but he doesn't as Prime Minister. You can't do it unless you've got to start again with a whole new Department of Immigration, staffed by people who believe in the cause of stopping the boats, of controlling our borders, knowing who's coming in and who is going out. You've got to do that. You've got to make it clear that zero will be resettled in the UK. You've got to declare, as the Australians did, a national security threat. You've got to process everybody offshore, and you've got to make it fundamentally clear. And actually, you've got to pick up and take back to France, which you can do under existing...
Well, I would suggest you need to deport to country of origin. They shouldn't. If people are illegal immigrants, they should be deported to country of origin. So put on a plane and sent back home.
Laws.
If we have to buy planes that are specifically designed to actually return illegal immigrants, and that's all they're designed for, then that's what we need to do.
If you have the courage and the nous to use those laws properly.
Right, but that wasn't what I was actually wanting to show, right? So, Richard Tice calls for net zero. Right, here we go. So bear in mind, I discussed this as well, and I'm sure Nigel has got reservations about coming back, but if his timing is perfect, you would be able to make a bounce coming right into the next general election. I think the Rishi Sunak's going to try and delay it. It could be 2025, but I would say that Nigel probably wants to come back probably beginning of next year.
Stops people from taking action is not lack of motivation. It's unexpressed emotion.
Now, you know, we're always very transparent here on GB News, and so even though he is a colleague, and in fact he's usually here on a Tuesday night, of course he's on holiday this week, I have to ask you the Nigel Farage question, because lots of folk saying actually the way to push Reform UK over the line is to get Nigel in some way back into frontline politics. As the leader of Reform UK, is that something that you're urging him to do? Would you be prepared to stand aside as leader?
So I think Richard Tice is growing. I think he was always intelligent. He's always been an intelligent man. I didn't doubt that. But he's certainly growing into his leadership role, and I think he was a very good pick by Nigel as well.
If Nigel wanted to come back, where are your conversations?
Well, you've heard Nigel recently, and we talk a lot, and he's as fuming and as mad and as cross about all of this as anybody, if not more, and he's made it very clear that he is considering his options, and if he wants to do anything, of course it will be with Reform UK. But what I say to people, look,
so that's great. Let's hear that again.
And if he wants to do anything, of course it will be with Reform UK. But what I say to people, look, we're not precious about titles. It's about action. Because frankly, what this country has not seen is action and performance. We've had too much words.
It's great auditory there. That's great. We're not bothered about titles. We're bothered about actions. That's great. I think Richard is intelligent enough to not stand aside, but get Nigel as the leader, and then actually support him in the short term. I think it could be his focus will still be at a general national level, but also he's got to try and obviously win Hartlepool.
Too much waffle and spin. We need action. We need it now, Dan.
So, but it would be possible that Nigel could return as Reform UK leader?
The most important thing is that Nigel, I think, he's got so much to give. As he said, it's not on his bucket list it wasn't his plan A.
We need him here. We need him here, that's why. I don't want you to steal him, actually.
He's a busy man. He's got lots of people who want him.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, so they haven't ruled out Nigel's return. If Nigel gets the UK reform in 25 to 33%, that's going to be massive for the Tories, massive for Labour. It's going to start then having ripple effects onto the red Brexiteer Labour supporters, and you might see a decline in Labour's historic high procedures there. I mean, if 10% of the Labour go over to UK reform, you're going to see changes and potentially people elected from UK reform. Let me see what you guys are saying. Got to go. We'll reply back later on the troops. Yeah, that's good, Jamie. Thanks, buddy. So that very interesting. So let's go back to seeing this. So we've done that one. So they keep these MPs, these SNP MPs, just keep blocking people as if they're not responsible. Joanna Cherry has basically said that she's not going to represent me. Never follow the guy, nor did I know who he was. But here we have it. Another pathetic separatist who can't stand the majority of Scots who despise the SNP Nicola Sturgeon and their continued failures. Scotland won't forget. SNP fail. People are dying needlessly on the A9. First job of the government is to protect the people. Well, certainly not for the SNP. I hasten to remind you that during the pandemic, they brought in people for, was it the Adidas thing or something like that? It was at some conference in Edinburgh in the middle of the pandemic, and then they had COP COP26 for people all over the world in the middle of a pandemic when everybody else was locked in their house. So I would suspect that we've now got vaccines that have some interesting things have been said about them. I think that's all I can say about them. Minister urged to sort out A9 duel amid annus horribilis of deaths. I think there was 9 people killed in the A9. SNP spent £600,000 on checks for deadly cladding. Hey nationalists, the next time you criticise Tories Westminster, you wonder if you are safe in your own homes. Take a look at this. Scottish ministers have spent less than £600 checking potential deadly cladding on houses despite receiving £97 million from the UK government. Officials confirm, and you just wonder where all the money's going. Thanks for the government. No credible business would deal with the SNP. £20 million on Pretendi Ref, £5 million renovate 2 tower blocks, £100 million to rent staff 2 cruise ships, £9 million on foreign offices, £15 million on prisoner wages, £3 million on mobile phones for prisoners, £1.5 million on election campaigns, £6.1 spend on radio advertising during the pandemic, 424 million spent on locum doctors, 18 million pounds annually on MSP's expenses, 116 million annually to run Holyrood, 30 million on Holyrood repairs, 450,000 paid to Stonewall, 23 million on repairs to empty Kids Hospital, 7 million on ministerial chauffeur driven cars, 1.3 on ministerial car trips, 1.2 million on electric cars for Holyrood staff, 25 million for 2,000 car charging points in Aberdeen, 30 million on low carbon transport loan scheme, 500,000 on failed National Energy Company, 110 million on 2 ferries sitting in dry dock unfinished, £40 million on Rangers case, £52 million in Bifab, 586 million on Lockerbie smelter, 178 million on failed agricultural IT system, 745 million on the A9, originally forecast at 395 million. A90, 30 million on failed energy company investment, 10 billion on failed Chinese consortium deal, 20 million on electric police cars with no charging points. Here we go, Edward Chung, Mr. Chung. Let's add Mr. Chung. Lessons must be learned, etc. First, which is never let nationalists run a census. Audit Scotland confirms botched census will cost millions more. SNP manufactured differences blamed for low response rate. SNP ministers have been accused of manufacturing differences after the spending watchdog confirmed that the botched Scottish census led to increased costs and low response rates of modern era. Another fail. Prisons overcrowding crowding toll is the worst in Europe. Scottish prisons have been grossly overcrowded for many years, and the death toll of those who die in jail has reached 121 since 2020, much higher than figures in England and Wales. The Scottish Prison Officers Union have reportedly warned the SNP that our prisons are a powder keg of trouble brewing, with drug abuse widespread. The SNP appear out of their depth, and just like our drug toll, we have Europe's most unenviable record of on jails. So the prisoners are not. The prisoners have human rights as well, and even prisoners should be protected as well. Bloody hell! SNP failed again. A&E waiting times, NHS Scotland, percentage of patients seen within 4 hours. Now again, this is adversely affecting the life and livelihoods of our country, where our life expectancy is greatly reduced. Percentage comparative to other countries, even countries up to sub-Saharan Africa, percentage of patients seen within 4 hours. So it was going up 95%, roughly, probably up until 2018. They managed to get it back up to 95% on 2000, probably 2000, mid 2020, come up to 2021, and now it's fallen off a cliff. It's down under Humza useless at 65%. There's people who have had to wait 24 hours to be seen in A&E. So this thing is absolutely is collapsed, and this on the back of Nicola Sturgeon keeping everybody locked in their house, destroying small businesses, and thereby not being able to facilitate costs that are incurred from the NHS, which there has to be an overhaul of the NHS, get rid of a lot of quangos and get more people, increase salaries in for frontline staff, and increase the amount of frontline staff as well. Because the actual cost of the NHS is just spiralling out of control, and obviously for Humza useless not being able to do his job again, or deliberately not being able to do his job, where, I mean, this is putting people's lives at risk. I mean, that's a 30% drop on A&E times. Never follow the guy. No, so we've already done that one. Let's do that. Her sidekick Ellen Whittam and her family have kept hold of Canadian passports and returning to Scotland. That's how much they love Scotland. Her sidekick Ellen Whittam, I don't know who Ellen Whittam is. 8 years waiting on Sturgeon's grand economic plan. She hasn't got a grand economic plan. In fact, I would say she was anti-business, being a Marxist. She is, her plan is not to have a plan, because she doesn't want small start-up businesses to be successful, unlike potentially Richard Tice. 8 years of waiting Sturgeon's economic plan, only for it to be slaughtered by proper economic experts who actually know what they're doing. Now, surprisingly, she's going to change it. Couldn't run a bath. They are all incompetent and waste of taxpayers' money. Noted it was Glasgow City Council, another arm of the SNP, getting through you see, getting thrown, you see, under the bus, I think it was, make changes from the Tories. You now know why the SNP are attacking Labour. You see the question that has been tabled by their MSPs at Hollywood this week, and you know that they're learned nothing, and that they about the NHS education ferries poverty. No, that's independence. In 2014, a lot of people voted yes because they wrongly told that the Tories were going to privatise the NHS. Remind us who recently caught discussing two-tier health system to the full knowledge of the Scottish Government. Scotland botched census led to increased costs and the lowest response rate in the modern era. They have 17% of prisoners who ID as trans. There has been 17% increase in prisoners who identify as trans. 42% of trans inmates have convicted of sexual offences. 44 out of 97 are rapists, and 14 child abusers. Scotland's record $2 billion budget with everything going to hell for education. NHS roads, community budgets cuts, spending $2 billion is mismanaged. Can't discuss with adults at a meeting, deemed them inappropriate, but it's teaching children. Here we go, let's see this guy.
Services to be properly planned. It's the single most important data gathering tool that we have. But Scotland's low response rate led to increased costs and additional work in order to produce solid results. The National Records of Scotland needs to establish why Scotland's response rate was lower than in other parts of the UK. These lessons should be publicly shared and will be key in planning successful delivery of future censuses and surveys.
Yeah, I mean, the census is very important. I certainly filled it in for planning, government planning. I can understand why people might not have wanted to fill it in, but it's definitely helpful and cost effective for the state to actually be able to facilitate the people that are here. Straight after the Supreme Court verdict, we've now listened to their desperate opinion polls while they ignore the mess of every devolved area. That's hilarious. Failure and cover-ups. Only SNP would do that. Protecting sex pest and bully Charles Kennedy. Good riddance to a bad rubbish. I was no voter, wouldn't venture within 10 of the yes stall on 10 feet, I think it is. So you tweet along with the fake poll is totally pointless. So you can see there's quite a lot of backlash to these sort of things. Let me just go back into failures. Longer our kids spend in school, the more they lag behind. So again, I've already covered, if you want to go back, I've actually covered the Scottish education system and the terrible, terrible events that have actually happened. Can I increase the size of that? Scotland educational system is on life support after its failures were laid bare in devastating reports showing pupils lag further behind their UK peers longer they spend at school. Children north of the border have their highest scores for cognitive skills age 3, but they literally, let's just say, and numeracy are worse of all by the time they are 15. The analysis by think tank, the Education Policy Institute, found Scotland was being outstripped across all income groups, but particularly among the most deprived, and its authors suggest, sorry, I apologise, that's quite small, the problems is getting worse. So obviously the educational reforms aren't working either. So let me see, where did I go? Nicola Sturgeon, the murky end to the SNP's chief legal career. So Nicola Sturgeon, the murky end to the SNP's chief legal career, exclusive, which is also something that we discussed on this channel as well. And the SNP seem to just think they can block you if they don't like your opinion, not to take on board the opinion of others, but just to block them. I would, if I was in power, I would talk to anybody. Anybody would be welcome and to have a conversation. I would not, if somebody has a difference of opinion, I would respect that and still allow them to express themselves. I don't think blocking people because they don't agree with you is an appropriate matter. If they're being abusive or they're being threatening, that's fair enough. But if they're just expressing a political point, which most people in Scotland are intelligent enough, then that's another thing. So this is another failure here. Nicola Sturgeon gave this gentleman hundreds of millions of pounds. He can't start up Scottish businesses, but he can give this foreign national hundreds of billions of pounds. I think he spent our taxpayers' money buying estates in Scotland, and I don't think he's actually produced what he was going to do with our taxpayers' money, which seems to be in an open-ended cheque to give to this gentleman. What is this? So let's, I think we'll actually have a look at this. GFG. Yeah, here it is here. So let's make this bigger. So Nicola Sturgeon defends Steelworks financial guarantee. The First Minister justified the Scottish Government's decision to give financial guarantees. So basically, the taxpayer through Nicola Sturgeon, because she's decided that this is the best way not to actually help Scottish entrepreneurs get any access to capital, but to give this Sajid Gupta, who has got questionable interests, this open-ended cheque. So the First Minister has justified the Scottish Government's decision to give financial guarantees to steel magnate Sajid Gupta by claiming the works and the smelter he bought in Motherwell and Lockerbie would otherwise have gone to the wall. So when was this? This was written on the 11th of March 2021.
Not be safe to do so quite yet. The first set of changes relates to outdoor social interactions. We realise that meeting up, even outdoors, even in Scotland, can be hugely beneficial for our well-being. So from Friday, we intend to relax the law so that up to 4 adults from up to 2 households will be able to meet outdoors. And in addition, we will make clear in the guidance that this will allow for social and recreational purposes as well as essential exercise. Meeting will be possible in any outdoor space, including private gardens, but please do stick to the new rules. Gatherings must be a maximum of 4 people from 2 households, and you should only go indoors if that is essential in order to reach a back garden or to use a toilet. And for now, please stay as close to home as possible. We hope to be in a position to relax, at least to some extent, travel restrictions within Scotland in the weeks ahead, but our advice is that it would not be safe to do so quite yet. For young people aged 12 to 17, we want to be even more flexible to enable more interaction with friends. So for 12 to 17-year-olds, outdoor meetings will also be limited to a maximum of 4 people, but the 2 household limit won't apply. That means 4 friends.
That's nothing to do with that. Nicola defended her backing of the
4 different families will be able to get together outdoors, and this will hopefully allow young
defended her backing of the GFG alliance, which owns Liberty Steel, and she was pressed at First Minister's question time on Thursday by Willie Rennie about the potential collapse of Mr Gupta's firm. So she's giving financial guarantees to a firm that's going to collapse, which has lost its financial backers after Greensill Capital was placed into administration. Mr Gupta has said that he is seeking alternative finance. The Scottish Liberal Democrats leader demanded to know what had happened to the 2,000 jobs a new factory promised by GFG took over the aluminium smelt and the power station at Lockerbie in 2016 and received a Scottish guarantee worth £575 million. That's how good Nicola Sturgeon is at picking winners. Sanjit Gupta today presented Nicola Sturgeon with special commemorative medal cast from Lockerbie Aluminium in 2018 to mark 2 years since the group GFG Alliance began investing in Scottish industry. Miss Sturgeon said that the government was in regular contact with GFG, but both at Lockerbie as well as the L steel plants and at group level overall. She said that the original investment plan at Fort William was impacted by a sharp fall in the automotive output. The business brought forward, so that must be automobiles. The business brought forward new investment plans totalling 94 million, and we continue to liaise with them about the challenges they face and steps they need to take to make sure they deliver on those commitments. A series of securities over the assets of GFG Alliance at Lockerbie has been in place, put in place, and Miss Sturgeon said, including the smelter, power station and land holdings, there were a series of other protections in support of the guarantee. Oh, great. So I'll let you lead on with that one. Thank you very much for everybody in Scottish trans community. That's not, is this that? No. Test and trace. Oh, let's just see what that said there. Thank you so much for everybody in the Scottish trans for coming to speak to MSP Karen Adam and her team for facilitating such an important event of solidarity. I don't know, some woman, Mercedes Vilaba. Well, here we go, got a clown here. So, Shadow Minister for Environment and Biodiversity, Democratic Socialist, great, member of UCU and Unite, join a union, she, her, in some trans alliance. Wonder if she's got any kids. Oh, there she is with her wee Marxist hand gestures. Pet aid, not going to help me in any way whatsoever. World Soil Day, another waste of time. Worldwide Conservation Day, great. International Day of Persons with Disabilities, yeah. International Day for the abolition of slavery. It's very anti-Islamic. I support my postal workers. Oh my God, it's like a car crash. So, where did that go? Where did she go? Right, here we go. So we've ready. Oh, is that a new one? So there isn't enough space on Twitter to list corrupt WM failures, Westminster. But here's a few to get started. Track and trace, 37 billion. Bounce back scheme failures, 17 billion. MOD wasting, 13 billion. Defective PPE, 10 billion. Rishi fraud, 4.3 billion. Oh, I don't know what that is. DHA irregular spending, 1.3 billion. Fraud and error from grants, 1 billion. Eat out, help out failures, 850 million. Aborted Nightingale Hospital, 532 million. Wasted PEP contracts, 437 million. Unused COVID vaccines, 250 million. Starter home scheme, 250 million. A yacht, 200 million. Defective face mask, 150 million. Single Tory council wasting 125 million. Wasted ferry contracts, 50 million. Circle payments, 50 million per month. Press room, 2.6 million. Subsidising Tesla cars, 1.2 million per week. Private polling, 580,000. One Australian return flight, 500,000 K. What the hell are they flying? They get a go. They get flying themselves. Transporting files in cars, 500,000. Photographers, 100 grand. Downing Street flat, 50k. Private dinners, 1k. Is that right? Looking forward to him getting rewarded for failure. Nothing back to being a slippery critter with no links to international arms, allegedly. I can't even see that. That's too far too small. Sorry, folks, but we're ignoring it. What the Germans did. I don't know what's happening there. But feminist to the bone, Nicola Sturgeon said, "This will never happen. This isn't an issue, and we women, girls, merely experiencing mass hysteria. Sexual predators know to self-ID, sex, not gender. Protect women and girls. All failure to so violate any all oaths of office." I mean, it's incredible. Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, this is just some of them. Let's have a wee look at what it says in the front of my podcast today. Nicola Sturgeon will fight the next election on the single issue of independence. Of course she will. She can't stand on her government record. That's catastrophic. NHS, we've already seen the NHS. A&E figures are a disaster. Humza useless, couldn't run a bath. Education's failing. We're failing the most vulnerable children in some of the most disadvantaged areas. Drug deaths, highest drug deaths in Western Europe. I think she's trying to kill the populace, never mind anything else. Thousands of people dying for drug deaths. Alcohol addiction, we've got a huge alcohol addiction problem as well. A lot of people are dying from one of the highest alcohol addiction death rates in Europe as well. We've got a subpar life expectancy for a Western country. Worst deficit, I think the deficit's sitting at the top of my head over £8 billion, because she can't grow the economy, because she doesn't want to grow the economy, because she's a Marxist and she doesn't have a plan. Let's have a look at this. So, we had the chance of having a Scottish stock market, which is correct. That would be great. A Scottish stock market would be absolutely fantastic. Let me just put it in Google. EEA hailed Nicola Sturgeon for strengthening links between London and Scotland. Yeah, here it is, yeah. Funding boost for Scottish stock market plans. Where's the Scottish stock market? This was away back in March 2019, so this is 3 years old. Scottish accountancy firm is to invest in a relaunch of the country's stock market after nearly 50 years. Anderson and Brown is supporting Project Heather, which will be headquartered in Edinburgh, with offices planned throughout Scotland. Financial services entrepreneur Thomas Crothers first unveiled plans for the exchange. Now, I've got plans for an exchange as well, but online trading platform which has been aimed mainly at companies worth between 50 and 100 million pounds. AB has a turnover 22 million. So there's no Scottish stock market. Again, it's failure. I think £1 million of taxpayers' money was put into this. No Scottish stock market. Money just disappeared. No offices. There were offices meant to be given no offices. Yeah, how you doing, Danny boy? Okay, good to see you, mate. Good to see you. Let's see what you guys are saying. Good to see you, Danny. So, let's get rid of him. So again, another failure. How many things did they have to screw up? I mean, they are worse than useless. I actually don't think they're actually failing. I think they're deliberately not doing the things that they should be doing, and then gaslighting the public. And the things that they say they're going to do, they don't do, and they should have done. But then, we just didn't do it. We didn't get around to it. I think they were going to give bikes and like their Father Christmas bikes and iPads to all the children in Scotland. Where are they? They haven't done anything in their manifesto. Nicola Sturgeon hasn't had the recognition and thanks she richly deserves. Due to the abject incompetence, astounding failure, corruption and recruitment of all the wrong people, she has ensured that independence will never happen. She has de-riched all of our lives. Brexit, Partygate, the cost of living crisis, and that vote of confidence. Yet, if the PM is unpopular, as his opponents claim, whisper it. But if Boris is so bad for the union, why hasn't support for independence changed one jot since 2017? Interesting. Because of Nicola Sturgeon's incompetence. Now there's Blackford's gone, so we've now got internal challenges to Nicola Sturgeon's authority, because she's very authoritarian, and she's probably the most authoritarian First Minister we've had. And now Blackford's gone, there's obviously challenges inside. Alison Thewlis, who's absolutely useless. I mean, a more useless MP I don't think you'll find. She didn't become the first leader down, the leader of the Westminster bunch for the SNP. She was kicked aside, rightly so, because she is really useless. So, I mean, we've got a whole bunch of incompetence running the country for the SNP. They're not increasing the number of potential nationalists to get them over the line to actually have a second referendum. So, I mean, it's just absolutely bonkers. You just wouldn't vote for anything. You wouldn't vote for anybody that's in the Labour Party as well. They're incompetent as well. Ian Murray, the last of the Mohicans. And if you're going to get a bunch of clowns that are going to come in through the Labour Party, if you change your vote from the SNP to Labour, it's not going to be any difference. It's the same doughballs that are in both parties, in the extreme left. It's the left-wing politics that's a problem. No, they're calling me far right and I'm a centrist liberal. It's because they're so extreme left. These people are lunatics and have proven that they can't run a bath. Time and time again, through their daft ideology, through their incompetence, through they don't have any self-recognition. It's them that's the problem. It's left-wing politics and them that's the problem. So we've already covered that. Any objective analysis would consider it's a record of abject failure. Of course it is. Of course it is. So here we go, let's go. So billions of pounds of taxpayers' money missing. I mean, I've only covered parts of it, but there's actually, what is actually needed is a historic research into getting, what do you call them? Forensic accountants, but public sector forensic accountants, to find out where this money's gone. And if people need to go to jail for embezzling or misuse of taxpayers' money, then that's what should happen. Education is failing. I mean, I've covered a full section. Andrew Neil, Fat Andy, did a great job speaking to Sturgeon about her failure, not just in education, but also her failure in the health service as well. I mean, the A&E times are only one part of that overall failure. SNP police investigations, where's the £600,000 missing money for the independence referendum? That's just part of it. Drugs deaths, highest number of drugs deaths. Crime spiralling out of control. They've got reduced capabilities for the police. Police doing a good job up to a point, but they still have got lack of resources. Highest alcohol deaths, not increasing the country's revenues by increasing the amount of people who are starting up businesses, but actually destroying them because of the pandemic. She didn't follow the Swedish model or the Florida model. She locked everybody in the house and destroyed businesses where entrepreneurs were then kicked out. We've got huge waiting lines for food kitchens and in Glasgow because of Nicola Sturgeon's incompetence. Hate and division, hate speech bills that target straight white men, only target straight white men, even though straight white men are still a minority in the country, because she's an alleged angry Marxist lesbian. She says she hates straight white men and she hates other women because obviously with the new gender ID that I'm now recognisably a woman. I've told you my name is Daphne and I've been a woman for the last number of years. So that's great. I'll be looking forward to all the perks that women get in society. Worst deficit. So she can't grow the economy. She has to borrow. The size of her government is too large. Who are doing God knows what. Filling in social policy that she's trying to gerrymander the society based off the WEF agenda. Ferry fiasco, 2 ferries still not built after all these years later. The NHS, as I've already covered, so that's NHS twice in that one. NHS failed, which is now nationalised the nationalised railway, which is then having to close things because it's nationalised. The state is now paying, the taxpayers now paying for the railway. What she should have done was actually got the cost. I think the major problem wasn't that it was private or nationalised. The problem was that the cost under the private sector was too high of the actual fares. We've got embassies all over the place wasting money. We've got the Gupta scandal, hundreds of millions of pounds, but she can't put any money into start-up businesses for high-tech, high-growth businesses because she's incompetent. She's never had to run a business in her life. COVID care deaths, bringing in people from all over the world in the middle of a pandemic that she's had to lock up the population in, but bringing them in for COP26. in the Scottish census, and that's only a proportion of the failure. She's going to go down as the most incompetent First Minister that Scotland's ever had. I could go on, but I think I'm going to leave it there. How long did I go there? For about an hour? Oh my God, honestly. It's just absolutely horrific. Got to leave that there. Guys, with news and opinion you can trust. Thank you very much, mate. Thank you, Danny. Right.